Thank you, Dougie, for inviting me into the Bodhi 360 family and for making me part of this worthwhile course. I've believed for some time that providing people with the right skills and knowledge to manage their own levels of stress can only be a good thing for individuals and organisations. Yes, if we recognise and manage the impact of stress on our lives, we not only feel better both mentally and physically, we function better. We think more clearly and more creatively, our bodies are healthier and not so prone to illness, muscle tension and organ dysfunction. The crucial point is that we are happier in our own skin. In everyday language, we often use the term stress purely in its negative form. But stress is simply energy generated by the brain-body system to meet a demand, positive or negative. The brain sets in motion over 1,400 biochemical and physiological changes, including the release of the hormones adrenaline and cortisol. Whether we're trying to win a race, give a talk, make love, ride a roller coaster, or fight off an attacker, the same biochemical changes take place. It's a normal, essential part of life. Known as the fight or flight mechanism, the stress response originated through natural selection in primitive times when life was much more physical. It's designed to deliver short-term boosts of energy to deal with immediate physical challenge or threat. The system then recovers and returns to a resting state. It worked brilliantly when life was much simpler. Now life is much more complicated and sources of stress are often psychological in nature and prolonged over time. Often it's our brains that are under pressure to solve problems or make decisions. So the physical response of fight or flight is redundant and the system remains on red alert because the stress hormones have not been used up and are still active. There are many sources of stress. Relationship and parenting difficulties, illness, bereavement, money worries and work problems are obvious ones. However, positive situations like getting married, moving home and pregnancy are also stressful because they move us outside our comfort zone and can overwhelm us with the planning and the number of decisions that need to be made. Exercise is good, but over-exercising stresses the body too much. Not drinking enough water or food that isn't nutritious is bad for the body and for the brain. Extremes of temperature, living and working where environmental conditions are poor, clutter and mess, all of these factors cause distress to the brain-body system. Sources can be external, for instance the expectation of others, our culture, our workplace. They can be internal, how we perceive a situation and what we expect of ourselves. Whilst challenges and threats in modern life can be physical, more often they are psychological in origin and stem from a fear of failure. If we become fearful in situations like giving a talk or going for a job interview or taking an exam, stress hormones are released but are not used up as intended through physical effort. The result is that the system is flooded. The heart races, muscles tense and feel shaky, the mouth becomes dry whilst the body sweats. Butterflies flutter in the stomach and there can be an urgent need to go to the toilet. We experience the draining anxiety of feeling overwhelmed and being unable to cope. And we get more and more panicky as increasing levels of stress hormones shut down our capacity to think, reason and remember. The mind goes blank and sometimes we can't even speak. Okay, I've got a simple demonstration that will illustrate to you how stress affects us. Put your right hand on your left shoulder and press down firmly and then release. A little pressure easily removed with no lasting effects. Now slowly increase the pressure, press down quite hard and imagine that pressure day after day for months or years. If we don't manage our stress, that pressure has a serious impact both mentally and physically. Mentally, we become exhausted, over-emotional, anxious and depressed, unable to think, concentrate, remember clearly or make decisions. A term we often use for this is brain fog. This is because consistently high levels of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol actually damage the brain. They kill nerve cells, they shrink neurons, and they alter the DNA, accelerating the rate at which cells age, and actually at the rate at which we age also. Physically, all the major systems and organs in the body will be affected, including the immune system. Eventually, nervous system regulation collapses into burnout. Yes, indeed it can. Stress hormones in short bursts have very positive effects. Physically, they give the immune system a significant boost. They increase sexual arousal, and mentally they trigger a positive, motivated and focused mindset. In situations of crisis, they give us the energy to survive. In times of calm, they give us the energy to live life to the full. Exercise, but not over-exercise, is a form of stress that has huge benefits. Muscles are broken down to make them stronger and able to resist better future stressors. The same principle applies to the mind. Mental challenges cause the brain to create new neural pathways to accommodate new information and new ways of looking at things. Research has shown that changing how you think about stress can have very positive effects. Viewing it as a chance for growth or a positive signal that you are energized and primed to meet a challenge changes both mindset and the negative impact of stress. Let's have a very simple way in which you can do this. At the supermarket, do you just join the nearest queue and wait patiently, or do you assess the best queue to join? Do you look at the checkout operator to gauge their effectiveness, the number of shoppers in the queue, and judge how fast they'll deal with their shopping? Do you look at how many items are in each trolley? And when you join a queue, do you reassess your decision and get annoyed if things move slower than anticipated? The way that we view and react to simple everyday situations is a good measure of how sensitive we are to the impact of stress and the strain we are putting on our system and the people around us. As a way of delivering the energy that we need to meet life's challenges, the The stress response is second to none. It's fast and it's efficient, and I believe that we spend too much time thinking about it negatively. A high-performance car needs to be driven and maintained with care. How about thinking of stress in the same way? As energising and positive. We drive and maintain our own stress response. This immediately changes our mindset from anxious to Amazon. But there are rules. We use it in the short term. We discharge the energy residue physically. We balance intense activity, mental or physical, with rest. We remain in control. We drive our stress, it doesn't drive us. Managing stress levels is vital both for our own health and for the well-being of the organisation. Working long hours over time with few breaks doesn't mean a good job done. It usually means exhaustion, bad temper, mistakes and low morale. Research from many sources shows that chronic stress damages the brain and our ability to be intellectually effective. It can even change the structure of our DNA, accelerating the rate at which cells, and therefore we, age. Eventually, the nervous system cannot cope any longer, and we collapse into the state known as burnout. Once this point is reached, the only antidote is rest, often for several months. Some people are unable to return to work, and if they do so, it's unlikely to be to their former job. It's almost as if they become allergic to the thing that has caused the problem. Innovative companies, especially in Sweden, are trialling a 6-hour day, and they've found an increase in productivity and a decrease in sick leave, which is really interesting for us. The point is that we need to work smart rather than crush our most valuable resource, our brain. People become overstressed when work pressures exceed their ability to cope. Achievable challenges at work energise and motivate, but if challenges are overwhelming and unachievable, then energy is replaced by exhaustion and motivation turns to stress. The tipping point will vary according to factors like personality, experience, age and competence. However, there are 5 common sources of major job stress. First, time pressures and deadlines, long working hours. Secondly, too much responsibility and an overload of tasks. Thirdly, uncertainty and threat of job loss. Fourth, a lack of support and bullying. And finally, poor environmental conditions. It can take courage to say no or to try and change the established work culture, but the alternative is far worse. Anxiety, depression, mental breakdown, emptiness and burnout make life a misery, and life shouldn't be a misery. A good place to begin is by treating ourselves better. To begin by making a personal contract to treat our brains with respect. Brains often get treated really badly. We expect them to cope with anything and everything and still function well. Process high volumes of complex information over long periods without a break? No problem. Cars often get treated better than brains. They're cleaned, serviced, receive the right fuel, the right oil, and water levels are kept topped up. Understand what your brain needs and why. For example, intensive thought and concentration needs to be balanced with rest, repair, and renewal, just like athletic training. Brains work less efficiently when they're dehydrated, even at a marginal level. They need water and they need the right nutrients for optimal performance. Exercise triggers the release of feel-good hormones and breaks down the toxic byproducts of stress hormones. Making small positive changes changes us. We find the confidence and courage to make bigger changes. When stress levels are high, we need to do something physical, like a fast 10-minute walk or run, to burn up stress hormones and bring our system back into balance. It will also help to trigger the release of calming endorphins. If you can't get out of the office for a walk or run, it's still possible to reduce stress levels through exercising the muscles. Try this. Place your feet firmly on the ground, tense your thigh muscles, hold as long as possible, then slowly release. Repeat until you can feel your stress levels falling. Another office-friendly stress buster is to hold your hands together, palm to palm. Press your fingers together as you take a deep breath. And by deep breath, I mean breathing deeply into the lower part of your lungs, not high into your chest. Hold the breath for 5 seconds and then breathe out slowly through your nose. Repeat 5 times. Using the breath in combination with physical action is very powerful because if we control the breath, we control the mind. Breathing in deeply as you stretch your arms out above your head in a wide V shape opens up your chest and brings space into the body. Often when we are stressed, we close ourselves in. Creating spaciousness creates relaxation. With your arms in the V shape, close your eyes and hold your breath for a count of 10. Breathe out gently through your nose and relax your arms. Repeat 5 times. These simple exercises will really make a difference. The lens through which we view the world and ourselves becomes our reality. We have the power to ensure that lens is positive because we have choice. The brain is neuroplastic, meaning that it's possible to grow new neural networks and undo entrenched patterns. Each time a negative thought arises like, I can't do this, immediately counteract it with a positive thought as simple as, I can do this, and then make a positive image of success in your mind. Something as simple as this is actually very powerful. Just as we can develop negative pathways in the brain, we can develop positive pathways and reduce stress triggers. Ask professional sportsmen and women to name 2 key factors behind their triumphs, and most will identify positive mental attitude along with the ability to visualize success. If it works for them, it can work for you. To improve your physical and mental stamina, make meditation practice part of your daily routine and include yoga as part of your weekly routine. Meditation doesn't have to be passive, it can be active as well. And walking, running and swimming are simple activities that help to focus the mind and enable it to detach itself from negative thoughts. Yoga has many positive, well-researched beneficial effects. Regular practice increases physical and mental endurance, as well as the ability to control the breath under duress, meaning that we remain more in control throughout the pressures of everyday life. It also increases mental clarity, sharpens attention and improves concentration. What you are doing is strengthening positive pathways in the brain and changing its orientation, so it starts to look for the positive rather than concentrating on the negative. The Buddhist monk Matthiya Rika poses the question, who amongst us wakes asking, May I suffer the whole day? Probably nobody, he notes, yet we still maintain behaviours that negatively impact our mental health. We may not be suffering the whole day and for every day, but we certainly suffer more than is necessary. But how do we change? What we do is we take a long, hard look at our lives and ourselves and find the courage to make changes. We are all a work in progress and have far more control over who we are and how we live our lives than sometimes we realise. I know this for a fact, having witnessed over the past 25 years the difference simple positive changes can make. Let me ask you a question. Don't we owe it to ourselves to feel good in our lives?